So you're an attorney, and you've decided to go out on your own. Now what? You need a plan, and you're not alone. Join expert host Adriana Linares and her distinguished guests on New Solo. Tune into the lively conversation as they share insights and information about how to successfully run your law firm. Here on Legal Talk Network.
Hello and welcome to another episode of New Solo on Legal Talk Network. I'm Adriana Linares, your host. I'm a legal technology trainer and consultant. I help lawyers and law firms use technology better. Today is a special part 2 of a series that I invited Conrad Saam to do with me. Conrad is the CEO of Mockingbird Marketing. Got him coming back to talk to us a little bit more about internet marketing. Before we get started, though, I want to make sure and thank our sponsors. Thanks to our sponsor, Ross Intelligence, the legal research platform that leverages AI to get to the heart of legal issues fast. Go to rossintelligence.com for a 14-day free trial. We want to thank Alert Communications for sponsoring this episode. If you're a law firm looking for call, intake, or retainer services available 24/7, 365, make sure and call 866-827-5568. Thanks to our sponsor, Clio, and make sure to check out their Daily Matters podcast, featuring valuable perspectives on legal in the COVID-19 era. Listen to Daily Matters at clio.com/daily or wherever you subscribe to podcasts. Law Clerk is where attorneys go to hire freelance lawyers. Visit lawclerk.legal to learn how to increase your productivity and your profits by working with talented freelance lawyers. Hey, Conrad, you're back.
I'm back.
Well,
We're
thanks
back.
for coming
We're back for more.
We're back for more. This is just such a great topic, and I get so many questions from lawyers. I'm going to start emailing them to you for your podcast because you have a podcast now on Legal Talk Network. Tell us more.
Yep. So Geet Sakalakis and I are doing the Lunch Hour Legal Marketing podcast. He was very gracious and decided to help me out. We've been talking forever together.
You guys are good buddies.
We are. You know what's the funny thing is, he and I should hate each other. We should be vicious competitors and hate each other. But the reality is, and this is going to come across, I can't come across as anything but arrogant when I say this. There's a small cadre of legal marketers that frankly deserve the job. And we tend to hang out. We tend to know each other and we tend to be client first and we do the right things. And so we don't really need to be vicious competitors. We can be really good friends. And that's how it's worked with him and I for a long time.
I say that all the time about my colleagues when people say, well, who are your competitors? I say, I don't really have competitors because we all have to help each other out. This market is so big. There's so much room for legal technology experts, whether it's in marketing or consulting, that we are all really good friends. Every once in a while, I get a law firm that shops me for, it's almost always a NetDocs implementation.
Right.
And I will know who they've already reached out to
right.
because we're all friends and we sort of have to ask each other questions or get each other's help. So I'm really glad to hear that. But,
I'll tell you this, though. The best way to get really amazing service from Guy or me or one of the other group of friends that we have is to pit us against each other with clients.
That's hilarious.
Because we're type A idiots. But yeah.
No, that's fun. So in our last podcast, I was trying to get us on some basic stuff, but we were having such a good conversation about just sort of maybe getting ready to leave a big law firm and go out on your own, or really starting to focus on creating your presence online. And you gave us a bunch of great tips for thinking ahead, for making sure that you claim profiles across the world, just to help make sure that your name search, which was a term that we talked about, which is someone searching specifically for your name, not necessarily for personal injury lawyer in Omaha. So we covered some, I think, really good tips over there. And I want to bring it back a little bit more to just website and thinking about some terms and when to hire a marketer. So we also talked about SEO and sort of talking about search engine optimization and how it's evolved and it's an art and a science. I'll say this as someone who spends a lot of time with legal marketers. SEO is not typically something that a lawyer should take on their own. There might be a time when you decide to hire someone for help to help you with that SEO. I have always said it's a science. It's really a difficult art form these days, a science and an art, getting SEO to work at a price point that somebody wants it to work. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Well, I think the biggest piece that's missed, and it's missed by agencies. It's missed by agencies as well as clients. Every SEO expert, ninja, maven, whatever they want to call themselves, thinks every client can have success in SEO. And that's actually not the case. Sometimes and not even sometimes, 40% of the time, I'll sit down with a new law firm and I'll be like, you should just forget even playing in this game. This is a marathon, not a sprint, and your sneakers are still in the box and there are people rounding the final aid station, right? And so don't bother. So it's a true story. I'm dealing with two of these right now. I have a new lawyer starting out doing PI, opening offices in two massive markets. Like, don't even bother. Don't
even bother. You're too late to the game.
And then I have another client. I'm literally was working on this RFP this morning where they were like, our SEO budget is $5,500 a month. And based on where they are and what they do,
it's not enough.
I said, so this is the worst pitch you could ever give. I told them they should put their money in PPC. Like, don't even bother. You're so far behind. And they're like, yeah, but we used to be great. And I was like, I know. It's a race. Everyone has passed you. You guys have sat the last, 4 years out, and it's gone. Like, I can't catch up. I just can't catch up for
and
you.
I think that's such an honest thing to tell people, and it's so hard for them to understand. I think because for so long, lawyers have been hearing from different marketing agencies, we'll get you on the front. Like, it's easy, but it's not easy. It may have been easy 12 and 15 years ago. I don't think it's easy today.
It's brutal. It's brutal. So Carolyn Elephant and I have had this conversation. She talks about how SEO has become the new back cover of the Yellow Pages. It just is so expensive. And by the way, I cannot stress this enough. All of this is dependent on how competitive it is. And what most law firms aren't thinking about are what are the nuances where it's not competitive. And nuance could be language, right? I can tell you, I have a couple of the country's most successful Polish language legal websites. True. Right?
Huh.
And they don't need to compete in English because they can win in Polish, right? Now, you might be like, small market. Yeah, but for a small law firm, that's game over.
All the market.
Right? Like, that's all we need. So we're going to dominate that. It can also be geographic. I have a client who's in the panhandle of Oklahoma. We did an amazing job for him like 5 years ago. He calls me every 6 months with some new idea that he wants to run by me. And that's it. Like, that's all we do because he has the best legal website in, I don't know, 50 miles, right? And so that works for him. You can also have a very, very specific niche. We have a couple of our clients, and I love these.
Yeah.
A couple of our clients are very, very obscure components of the law. And they've got 7 or 8 competitors nationwide, and we kill it for them because they've only got 7 or 8 competitors nationwide.
Well, I was helping a lawyer in San Diego a few months ago, and she is estate planning lawyer. How do I get on Google? So, I said, you're a brand new lawyer in a pretty big market, San Diego. I said, you're not getting on Google without paying for it, but can you niche your practice?
Right.
She's like, what do you mean? I said, well, I never see anybody pitching estate planning to young parents. I go, why don't you become the lawyer in town for young married couples who don't think about estate planning? So, I mean, I was just trying to give her an idea of how to create a niche of any sort, because you can't just be an estate planning lawyer and expect to be found. And
so the key there is if you niche within a market, and by the way, I want to hit one other point before we go into this.
Yes, don't forget.
Depending on what you do, it's achievable. Divorce, immigration, they tend to do better. Estate planning, frankly, in a smaller city is achievable. So like if you're in a smaller city or if you're not doing PI or criminal defense, like SEO can play into the mix, right? Nice. Depending on where you are. So I don't want to throw everything out like SEO is terrible for everyone. I've just recently had so many experiences with people thinking they can go to, top of Google and PI in, downtown Atlanta. And it's like, I don't know how to help you here. But the niching is very fascinating because if you can niche yourself within a market or within a type of practice or a language, what happens there's this great book. This is like a very old business book called Selling the Invisible by a guy named Harry Beckwith. I've got like 10 copies on my shelf right here. I send out to people all the time. When you are the estate planning attorney for young parents.
That's a good idea, right?
Your market, it's a great idea, right? Your market becomes Like your prospects are thinking about, am I a young parent or not? And if I'm a young parent, this is the right person for me.
Right.
If I'm not, it's the wrong person for me, and that's fine. Beckwith says, the more narrow your focus, the more broad your appeal, right? And
true.
it makes people want you more. And
Well,
so it works from an SEO perspective too. Yeah.
Of legal technology. I don't just do technology consulting or IT. I do very specific legal technology consulting. And you're right, my scope is broad, or my reachability is broader because of that.
Because of the focus. I believe Beckwith's book is fantastic. It's a great
Awesome.
read.
Well, that's a good recommendation right there. Hey, let's take a quick minute and listen to some messages from some sponsors before I come back and ask you a few more questions. Artificial intelligence won't outpace lawyers anytime soon, but lawyers who use AI are already outpacing lawyers who do not. With Ross Intelligence, lawyers conducting legal research leverage AI to get to the heart of legal issues fast. Ask a question on the Ross Legal Research platform, and Ross will return on-point case law. Go to rossintelligence.com today and get a 14-day free trial. Use promo code LegalTalk for 10% off. Law Clerk is where attorneys go to hire freelance lawyers. Whether you need a research memo or a complicated appellate brief, our network of freelance lawyers have every level of experience and expertise. Signing up is free and there are no monthly fees. Only pay the flat fee price you said. Use rebate code NEWSOLO to get a $100 Amazon gift card when you complete your next project. Learn more at lawclerk.legal. Okay, we're back with Conrad Saam from Mockingbird Marketing. And Conrad has a new podcast too on the Legal Talk Network, which I will happily pitch and encourage you to go subscribe to, called Lunch Hour
Legal Marketing.
Legal Marketing. I wasn't sure if lunch hour, if legal was in there. Tell me, let's go back a little bit. We spent a lot of time talking about directories and trying to get found and searches, but let's go back to a basic website. So a basic, I'm getting ready to go out on my own. I've started the strategic process of getting my practitioner page on Google My Business set. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and listen to the previous episode. I've claimed my profiles on LinkedIn, on Avo, on all the free directories I can. And now I'm just going to have a website built. And I'm going to assume, are you a WordPress pusher as much as anybody?
I'm a WordPress pusher.
Okay.
I would say if you are using anyone.
Wix?
So
like what happens when somebody comes to you and they say, I'm going to build my website on Wix or Squarespace?
So this is my caveat to WordPress. If you're going to do it yourself, go spend $19 and learn WordPress. But if you don't want to do that and you're in an uncompetitive market and you have a way to get people to your website through advertising or something like that, and you build something on Wix or Squarespace, like, okay.
It's fine.
Okay. I don't love it. It's not what I would do, but it's okay. Do it yourself. Okay. What you should never do, never pay a professional to build you a Wix website. That's like hiring my, daughter to do your portrait. Like, just don't do that. And so, WordPress, for me, WordPress is where it is. But you have to think about, like, if you're going to run advertising and you want a really cheap website, right? Because you're going to run advertising to it, that's fine, right? Now there are limitations there. Like I don't like going the Wix Squarespace kind of route. I just don't.
Yeah, I don't either. Look, you're much more diplomatic than I am. I just tell them to go to WordPress. I mean, it's the standard platform. You're going to find the most plugins. Most people are familiar with using it. When you want to grow it or shrink it or change it, you're going to have a lot easier time on WordPress. So I'm a WordPress pusher.
Yeah. No, I mean, you really should. It's professional versus unprofessional. So you're on WordPress. I think for me, the key here is don't get, especially for solo, especially starting out, don't get really wrapped up in the most amazing, dramatic website. A lot of people tell me I don't want a cookie cutter website. I was like,
every website is cookie cutter.
It's and you have a cookie cutter budget, right? We're making cookies here.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that's out there. There's some stuff I look at. So let me put it into financials. If you've got $10,000 to spend
a month or a year,
period, right? This is my budget. It doesn't for my purposes here. It doesn't really matter. If you've got $10,000 to spend, I want you to spend as little as possible as you can on a website, especially if you're starting out, and as much as possible driving people to that website, as long as that site doesn't turn people off. Sometimes, like I look at sites all the time. Sometimes you look at a website and you're like, wow, if I ever landed on this website, there's no way I'm calling Fred because Fred clearly can't afford a website, so he can't be a good lawyer. That happens.
That's how I am. And when I see an attorney with an @AOL website right on their homepage, you pretty much bet that I'm not going to refer them. Even after somebody referred me to refer them, I go to their website and I think, well, I'm not going to send a friend to that website because 1, it is terrible, but 2, they have an AOL email address.
Don't have AOL, don't have Yahoo, don't even have Gmail. Have your own bloody email address.
Which
you're professional.
There's a term you mentioned earlier that I want to go back to in our previous podcast. You said vanity term, or did you say vanity URL? But I want you to tell me what that or those are.
I talked about vanity search. It's kind of a pejorative.
Oh, for your name search.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of people will search themselves and see how they, this is a pejorative term that SEOs use because it really annoys us when you start searching for yourself or searching for this, that, or the other thing and thinking that that's what represents what other people see when they're looking for you. And it just doesn't represent it. It's a stupid waste of your time.
Oh, well, that's not bad. I mean, it's good advice. I don't know if it's pejorative. I mean, it's the word vanity. You're not like dropping an F-bomb or anything. Is it important for me to have my last name in my URL for my law firm?
No, not at all.
Okay.
And
so I can have a name search that I've been working on for 3 or 4 months before I even go out on my own or launch my law firm. And then when I'm going to decide on my law firm URL, because if you have, like you said in our last conversation, a common last name, it's going to be hard to find a URL for, Smith Law, San Diego,
Right.
So
it is hard.
So what do I do at this point when I want a URL that's easy to remember, that is reflective of what I do? Maybe I can't have my last name in it.
So by the way, this is very dependent where you are in the country because different states have different perspectives around what you can name the law firm, blah, 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 blah. Naming your law firm is a big deal from an SEO perspective, okay? I'm having this conversation with someone right now, and this is a strategic question. Are you going to build up the firm as you? Right? Like should let me move it out of legal. Should Mockingbird really be Conrad Saam Consulting, right? Because Conrad's got this big reputation, everyone knows who Conrad is. Or is it something that can live without Conrad, right? And it can be a thing above and beyond Conrad. And it's a question that you need to think about what your future looks like. And so naming the firm, it's I think a lot of people don't put enough time into doing that right and thinking about what the future may hold, especially in a very uncertain future. And if you name the firm San Diego Estate Planning Expert, let's not use the word expert, San Diego Estate Planning Legal Resource, right? I hate this, but right now in those local results, that will help you rank in those local results. Which I hate because now it looks like all the local results, and you've got law firms changing their name just to show up specifically local. It's happening. And so right now, over the last 2 or 3 years, like that's a thing. It works. I hate it, but it works.
Hate it, but it works. So should I put the area of law that I'm practicing if my last name is harder to get to?
I'm giving you a specific SEO answer, and the answer to that question is absolutely.
Okay.
And I don't like it. Again, I hate it. Hate it. But
here's why I think that's a tough decision to make, because I cannot tell you, and you probably have the same experience, how many lawyers can't predict their future. So they're going to start out in one area of law, and then that's what they focus on. And then either a partner comes on, or they meet someone whose law firm they want to join, and maybe they're going to change the practice, which I'm having this conversation with a firm right now. They're trying to get out of estate planning, more into real estate. And so there's transitioning that happens. So I guess if you decide to do that, really focus on one area, just know that there might be a change in your future. I get it all the time. They don't know. I mean, look at what is happening right now in the world with lawyers and law firms. Well, all the changes that must be circling, right?
You guys get together and break up like the Kardashians, right? Like
so true.
And sometimes that's really ugly, right?
Yeah.
I've gotten in the middle of, I've got a client right now who the last conversation I had with him before he hired us as a client was him threatening to sue me because I was helping out his now former ex-partner as they were breaking up, right?
Wow.
And he came after me. And so like it can get very, very ugly. And you don't know what the future holds.
You really
it's
don't.
Really difficult. I can tell you, I mean, my own experience, I thought I was going to be a single person SEO consultant, right? And now I'm doing all sorts of things as an agency.
Yeah.
But you guys don't know what's going to happen. And having that name focus is problematic. Sorry, having the practice area focus within the name can be problematic. Frankly, having the name within the name is problematic because Smith and Jones becomes Smith and Smith and Smith and Jones and Smith. Like it's not easy.
It's not easy. Let's take a quick break, listen to some messages from some sponsors, and we'll be right back. As the largest legal-only call center in the U.S., Alert Communications helps law firms and legal marketing agencies with new client intake. Alert captures and responds to all leads 24/7, 365 as an extension of your firm in both English and Spanish. Alert uses proven intake methods, customizing responses as needed, which earns the trust of clients and improves client retention. To find out how Alert can help your law office, call 866-827-5568 or visit alertcommunications.com/LTN. The legal industry is undergoing a fundamental transformation, and the Daily Matters podcast is here to give you a competitive edge. In Daily Matters, Clio's CEO Jack Newton interviews prominent legal experts to explore how solo and small firm lawyers can succeed in the current economic environment. To listen, visit clio.com/daily or subscribe to Daily Matters wherever you get your podcasts. All right, we're back. Conrad, we've had a good conversation so far about naming the website. Should probably have it on WordPress. You have some leeway on alternatives. I don't. Talk to me. We were talking a few minutes ago. You were saying, look, if you have $10,000, I think this is really great advice. If you have $10,000, spend as little of that budget in building a nice looking, non-repulsive website, and then spend the rest of your budget driving traffic to that website. Correct. One of the terms that you mentioned in our previous conversation was bounce rate. And I think it's interesting for you. I think that's a great term for you to describe in going back to building a website that is not going to bounce visitors right off the page because it's so unattractive.
Sure. So I think there's two elements to bounce rate. And we need to, I have a pretty strong opinion on this. So let's start defining it first. A bounce is someone who comes to a website, looks at one page, and then leaves. Okay? Now, traditionally, there's two elements that make this a negative thing. One is if you are a publisher, if you're Avvo, for example, you want a low bounce rate because every single time someone opens a page, opens a new page, turns multiple pages, you're adding more inventory, right? You're adding more advertising inventory. So publishers like bounce rate. Like a low bounce rate. They focus on having a low bounce rate. The second thing is there was a time when a high bounce rate, that conversation at a high bounce rate was something that Google didn't like. The example is basically, I'm looking for fuzzy bunny slippers. I do a Google search for fuzzy bunny slippers. I click on the fuzzy bunny slipper link. That's number one. I look at that result and I'm like, wow, I really don't like that shade of pink. I'm going to go back to Google and look for a different fuzzy bunny slipper. And so there was this notion that Google was using that to determine whether or not the initial rank should actually belong to be there, right? You guys are lawyers. And the reality is, let me give you a different example. I'm looking for an immigration attorney in Seattle. And I type in immigration lawyer Seattle. I click on the first link that I see. I come to this amazing page. I see that Jane is just this amazing immigration attorney who's completely shared my own personal experience going through the immigration process. And she is exactly who I want to call. And I call her and I hire her and I close the web browser and I have just bounced, right? I have just looked at one page and left, and that's a bounce. And Google knows.
But it's a win.
It's a win. It's a huge
win. But
Google
doesn't know.
No, they do know.
They do?
They do know. So the notion that every single website should perform like a publishing platform is a misnomer. And so I get lawyers. So I'm blanking on the name of the theory, but there's this psychology theory that when you know a little bit about something, you start to feel like you know a lot about it. And I think bounce rate is one of those things where people are like, oh, I get it. I understand it. This is a thing. And so I talk to lawyers about bounce rate a lot.
But I guess ultimately is my goal to prevent a high bounce rate? No.
Your goal is to get them to call a bloody phone.
Okay.
Right? And so like, if this was a real thing, if this was something that I worried about, I would have the phone number obscured from all of my viewers, and you'd have to go to a new page to see the phone number. And there would be like plugins that were like bounce rate unoptimizer or bounce rate minimizer plugin that sends people over to a new page that looks at a phone number that you then call. No, you don't care about the bounce rate.
Okay.
You want them to pick up the bloody phone.
So how do I make that happen?
Well, you have to get them to your site, right? There's two elements to this. You have to get them to your site, and then you have to make it easy to connect with them. So the get to the site is, we talked about this in the previous episode.
Yep.
Pay-per-click, Google Local, and SEO. And we haven't talked about the competitiveness of each of those and how to assess that, which we should come back to. But the second thing is, do people want to connect with you, and can they connect with you the way they want to connect with you? And go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've been doing a ton of training on remote meetings with clients.
Yep.
And lawyers have said, which platform do I get? Do I use Google Meet? Do I use Zoom? Do I use FaceTime? Do I use whatever? And I say, you use them all. Okay?
Use what they want.
Use them all. You become an expert in all of them. And when you're engaging the client, you say, which platform or which video meeting service are you most comfortable with, and that's where you go. So I think that's our goal always in legal, is help, as far as technology experts go, is helping to reduce the friction in communicating with the client. Now, in this case, we're communicating with a potentially new client. So what you're saying is you give them all the choices.
So
Click
the
the call.
choices for me,
Click the chat.
to call, chat,
Fill out a form.
or phone call. Most lawyers tell me that I have this conversation at least once a week. I'm amazing once I get someone to talk to me. And so I only want, I need to talk to them. Like, we got to get on the phone and I can close them because I'm just amazing. I'm so charismatic and knowledgeable. They're not always charismatic and knowledgeable, but that's a different problem. But most of you are approaching this from, and by the way, I am guilty of this. I did this with my agency for a long time. But most of you are guilty of thinking that the way you like to converse and turn people into clients is the way you should force people to contact you. The reality is, if I just walked in on my wife with the pool boy, I may not want to pick up the phone in front of my kids. I may want to fill out a form, right? And so you need to make it convenient for your audience to connect with you the way that's convenient for them and appropriate for them, especially in legal.
I agree. I think we lack a lot of flexibility. It's a very rigid profession. It's changing a lot, especially over the past couple of months. But I think that's such a great tip to end on, because unfortunately we've reached the end of our time, as we often do when we're chatting, Conrad, which is, you have to become, unfortunately, an expert in a lot of things that you might not be comfortable with. And that might be figuring out how to make a website look good, how to get those components on there. Or what I tell most lawyers is you should hire somebody to help you, but you really want to be able to ask the right questions and understand what types of reports you want to get from them, what your goals are. When they talk to you about SEO and PPC, get educated beforehand, and don't be afraid to ask them in depth if you do find someone that can help you in becoming that expert, because you just have to today. You're running a business. Can't sit there and just write checks and not know what's going on. And I love your idea of meeting the client where they are most comfortable, whether it's through marketing or, in my world of technology consulting. Any last words of wisdom that you wish every lawyer would have in their head when it comes to thinking about marketing, and especially if maybe they're on a budget? Which they're all on a budget.
They're all on a budget. They should all be on a budget. I think the key here is, as you are talking to agencies, as you're looking to agencies, I want you listening for the why this channel, why SEO, why pay-per-click. And most agencies are hammers looking at the world as a nail. I do content, so you need content. I do advertising, so
I do blogs, so you've got to have a blog. Blogs will save the world.
Exactly. And people look at the world like that because it's convenient for them. I think what you really want is a strategic partner who's going to say, don't blog because you don't have the website authority to do it. What you should do is what you should do is local, or what you should do, given your situation, is you need to spend as much money as you can on pay-per-click, because that's what's going to get you the returns the best. And so look for an agency that is going to look across all the channels that you can use and tell you why they've chosen X, Y, or Z, or X, Y, and Z, as opposed to, this is, you're a nail and I'm a hammer and it's a match made in heaven.
Before I let you go, I do want to ask you to help lawyers with realistic expectations about costs. When they hire a high-end, high-performing agency like yours, can they come to you with a $500 a month budget for marketing?
Oh, for a website? Sure.
But wait, you build websites for free.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, because that's a very cool service. But what I mean beyond that is, well, now I really want to work on my PPC and my SEO. How much is that going to cost me?
Right.
So tell us about your free service first, and then set some expectations for me.
So
about
we
what
talked a
this
little
costs.
bit about cookie cutter websites. We have our own free cookie cutter website, which we're giving away to lawyers. I don't want to turn this into a pitch session, but
It's okay.
when COVID came out, I was like, what can we do for our community?
Yeah.
So we have a WordPress-based site called Freco that we're giving away to lawyers through the end of the year. CHO.
Okay.
It's free Echo because it's our website product called
Oh,
Echo.
I
And
got
so we
it.
made it Freco because we're creative like that.
Very creative.
Kind
Freckle.
of cute. So that's one thing. But really, if you have a $500 budget, you need to have a bare bones website and you need to be bidding on your name. And I would probably do anything else outside of that. I would put into my kids' college fund or maybe into a lease on a new BMW.
So it's not cheap, is what you're saying.
It again, it depends on where you are and what you do, and your budget needs to align with that. I do have clients who spend $500 a month on us on a basic website and their name search, right? And that's fine because they do
what
a
they
very
need.
specific thing, and that's what they need. What you can't do, and I also have clients who spend $17,000 a month on SEO alone. I have clients who spend $105,000 a month on pay-per-click. And
I got a guy in Florida that spends $60,000 a month,
yeah.
but makes it back tenfold.
Yeah.
I mean,
so it's very wide. For me, in general, PI sucks. Criminal defense, actually, PI is great for me. This is all in reverse. PI is expensive. Criminal defense is expensive.
Right.
Mass torts, those types of things are brutal. The further you move away from a large town, the better off you are. And the more you move into what I will call extremely fragmented practice areas, typically those look like employment, family. There are very few really large family law players. It's a zero-sum game. So the bigger you are, the more you have to spend on this stuff, and the more it works as kind of a flywheel. But to the extent that you are in the more fragmented practice areas, you can get by in a $2,000 budget, right? And you can do well on a $2,000 budget. But if you're running PI in Atlanta, your SEO budget's $15,000 a month, right?
Yep.
And that's to be effective. And what I don't like seeing, I've got this right now. Dallas PI, their budget is $5,000 for SEO, and I was like, don't bother. Don't bother. Put it into something else, or that BMW.
Commercials are actually cheaper than that. A radio spot,
Radio spot,
Right.
branded advertising, but like, don't dip your toe in the SEO pool if you're in a very competitive market, because you're just
You're just going to
your
lose.
kid's
It'd be
college
like me
fund.
sitting down at a blackjack table. I'm just there to lose my money because I have no idea what I'm doing.
You may have a gambling problem instead, right?
Right.
But don't spend it on an SEO agency that's
Have
never gonna
fun
get
while
you
you're
anywhere.
while you're wasting money. Go get no.
Right.
We should not encourage anyone to have a gambling problem. I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
guys
Go to
cut
New
that-
Orleans and hang out with Adriana and myself.
You guys cut that part out of the conversation. All right. Well, Conrad, it's been really great having you on. I would say I'll invite you back. It'd be great. I'd love to have you on as a regular, but I'll just send people to your show instead. Remind us one more time about your new podcast on the Legal Talk Network.
Yeah, it's Lunch Hour Legal Marketing with Conrad and Guy.
I love that. And then also,
I should say Lunch Hour Legal Marketing with Guy and Conrad, because it's really his show that he invited me on. I should be more gallant than that.
and Guy is GYI. His name.
You want me to spell the last name?
Yeah, and Sakalakis is his last name. And he, since we've thrown so many props at him, you might as well make it easy for people to search for him.
It's Geet Sakalakis at Attorney Sync. You can spell his last name TSALAKIS.
That's very good.
Which would make a great password if you needed one.
Indeed, it would. Hey, I might change all my passwords to actually Guy's full name would be great.
Yeah.
And tell everyone how they can find, friend, or follow you. Where are you active?
Yeah, I am active. Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm active. Mostly you can find me through Google because I have that very unique name, ConradSaam.com. You can find me that way. If you can't, you should never hire me.
And if you're going to search Adriana Linares, make sure you put -Viola Otherwise, my alter ego that plays the viola, my Colombian alter ego that plays the viola turns up. Yeah, you'd think a name like Adriana Linares. But, Adriana Linares is kind of like Jennifer Smith in the Latin American Hispanic world.
And that's why, again, this goes back to our theme of competitiveness. The more competitive it is, the harder it is to deal with.
So true. Well, thanks so much again, Conrad. I very much appreciate your time. I know you're super, super busy this morning. And I want to thank all our listeners, again, for listening to New Solo on the Legal Talk Network. If you like what you've heard today, I'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes. And tell your friends about my podcast and about Guy and Conrad's podcast, too. We'll see you next time. And remember, you're not alone. You're New Solo.
Thanks for listening to New Solo with host Adriana Linares. Tune in again to learn more about how to successfully run your new practice. Solo, here on Legal Talk Network. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by, Legal Talk Network, its officers, directors, employees, agents, representatives, shareholders, and subsidiaries. None of the content should be considered legal advice. As always, consult a lawyer.